Good day everyone. Today we'll be taking a look at Sayu and what she might be good at and what she might be not so good at. Now, as a support anemo character, I would honestly find her quite lacking. When we look at the other support anemo characters in the game, say Sucrose, Venti, Kazuha, even the Anemo Traveler, there are a great number of things in which they have in common. The first, of course, being the fact that they can utilize the Viridescent Veriner set. The second being the ability to gather enemies together, which can drastically decrease the time it takes for you to clear a lot of the content in the game. Some have stronger gathering abilities, like say Venti, whereas some have the ability to drag enemies from one spot to a different spot, like with the Anemo Traveler. The third is most of them have some form of damage increase for the party within their own kit. The Anemo Traveler, being a character you can 6 Constellation simply by playing the game, grants an additional 20% resistance shred. Kazuha grants a massive damage bonus, and Sucrose gives elemental mastery to the party based on her own. And finally, the ability to infuse an element into their off-field bursts. Now this last thing can be very useful as it can allow you to increase your aura of an element, either making a certain type of reaction more reliable or allowing you to do it in the first place. Now Sayu ticks off an additional checkbox. She is a healer, but what of the remaining Anemo support abilities does she have? Well, of course, she can use Viridescent Veriner. However, she has no gathering abilities whatsoever. She also doesn't have any damage increase to the party anywhere in her kit. However, both of these are, in my opinion, disappointments, but in no way would mean that you just wouldn't use her in certain parties. However, the last, being the lack of infusion into her off-field ultimate, is a different story. Anemo actually weakens an element in order to apply Swirl. Now for the other support characters, because of their elemental infusion, this doesn't really matter. You can simply say infuse with Hydro, and instead of hindering, they will actually help you apply the Hydro element. But as Sayu's ultimate does not have an elemental infusion, that means she will only be removing auras rather than helping sustain them. So if you're using a comp which wants one specific element to be an aura and one specific element to be the trigger, Sayu may end up making that difficult instead of helping with it. And precisely because of that reason, I likely won't be using her in the meantime, as that's what my builds tend to focus around. So as an Anemo support, she's honestly not that great for a lot of team compositions. What does she seem to have instead, however? Instead of being a group support, she instead seems to be focused more on actually dealing damage herself. Most of the support healers in the game, especially 4-stars, healing scales with a separate stat to what they would use to do damage with. Sayu does not. Sayu's healing scales off her attack, meaning that you can build Sayu to both do damage, but also to heal. Now, I don't think Sayu's damage output is necessarily going to be particularly large, but she should be able to at least output some DPS, and adding, instead of party damage, just her own DPS to the overall team damage output. Now, another thing to mention with this is her elemental skill. Now, the elemental skill itself, especially the hold, doesn't really seem like it does much damage. It has very low multiplier after all. However, as you can see here, while it has a very low multiplier, it also can hit many times. And this is an ability that you can hold for 10 seconds. Which then will have a cooldown of 11 seconds after you finish the cast. What this could mean for Sayu is that for your characters that have significant downtime, like perhaps Child, or maybe even Yoimiya, Sayu could actually end up managing to take the spot of the sub DPS, while also taking the spot of the healer and the Viridescent Veriner character. As you could say, use Child for a period of time, then swap to Sayu, and use her hold skill for that 10-second duration, and then, once it's over, swap back to Child. And so, could allow you to have a sub-DPS that is also a healer, that is also increasing your other character's damage through Viridescent Veriner, and thus allow you to, instead of having to run a sub-DPS in a different slot, instead just use 2 additional characters that are DPS. Could throw in maybe Beidou and Jingling or something. And so I think that is pretty much what Sayu is going to be. She is a healer, which you can get Viridescent Variner to, that can also do some damage, but she won't be able to support your team in the same way that the other anemo supports in the game do. She doesn't have any other way to increase the team's damage, she has no ability to gather enemies, and she cannot help apply an aura, aside from her elemental skill, which she has to be on field to do, which very may well be another thing you could attempt to do. You could instead use an off-field DPS like say Zhangling, maybe use a cryo character like Rosaria to apply the cryo that you need, and then use Saya's hold skill to try and apply enough cryo to be able to melt all of Zhangling's attacks. Could definitely be something interesting to test out. And while having a healer with Viridescent Variner is great, if you think about it, that means the only thing this character is actually doing to increase the party's damage is through an artifact set, which you can kinda do with any other healer in the game anyway. For example, you could just use Barbara, give her the Instructor set if you're doing anything that involves Elemental Mastery, and give her the Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers for a nearly 50% attack bonus. And in some team comps, you might not really see a difference in damage. So while Sayu I definitely think is a nice and a good inclusion to the game, I do have to admit I am a little bit disappointed, as while of course it would be nice if she could gather enemies or she provided more damage bonus to the party, really the lack of the elemental infusion, and so instead removing auras really limits the team comps in which I would put her in. And so, I think that about sums up my thoughts on Sayu. By no means do I think she's in any way a bad character, do think she is a great inclusion to the game, and hey, it can also be pretty fun to use her hold skill, play Escape from the City, and gotta go fast. And so, having found a place where hopefully no one can disturb us with work, and be free to go about our lazy ways, we reach the end of the video. What do you think of Sayu? Is she everything you could possibly want? Do you find her a little bit lackluster? What type of team comps are you looking forward to put her in? Are you going to try to use her as a main DPS? Perhaps give her a highly refined sacrificial weapon and try to essentially always remain Sonic? Do let me know down below in the comments. And as usual, thank you for watching. Look forward to seeing you again next time and hope you all have a great day.